I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry.
That's Nancy Pelosi doing something that I quite honestly did not expect her to do. The House is now officially launching an official impeachment inquiry. This is following a report indicating that a whistleblower within the intelligence community filed a formal complaint after listening to, or I shouldn't say listening to, after there was an accusation that Donald Trump had a phone call with a world leader, and during that phone call, Trump made a troubling promise. Now, since then, we've learned a great deal about Donald Trump and his relationship with the Ukrainian president. The Washington Post has been reporting on this. The Wall Street Journal reported that on at least 8 separate occasions, Donald Trump communicated with the president of Ukraine and tried to pressure him to launch an investigation into his political opponent, Joe Biden, and his son, Hunter Biden. And so this is great news. And I want to just quickly go to some more context from Pelosi's speech today and then open it up for conversation. Take a look.
For the past several months, we have been investigating in our committees and litigating in the courts, so the House can gather all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article I powers, including a constitutional power of the utmost gravity, approval of articles of impeachment. And this week, the president has admitted to asking the president of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The president must be held accountable. No one is above the law.
And impeachment begins. We win. Okay, so hold on. I know everybody hold the phone, hold on. So what do I mean by we win? First of all, we win over Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi did not want to do impeachment under any circumstance. And today, John Lewis put the last straw on the camel's back, and she conceded. So later, in fact, I said this earlier in the day on Twitter, that later she will claim that she was personally in favor of impeachment. Later in the day, before we got on air, Howard Feynman reporting, well, I mean, as Nancy Pelosi was personally in favor of impeachment.
Oh, come
on, right? So that's not remotely true. Pelosi was dead set against it. Her caucus pushed her to finally take this action begrudgingly. So that's mainly what I mean by we win, impeachment begins. Now, in terms of against Trump, look, we're gonna talk more about this later in the show, but I think impeachment will prove devastating to Donald Trump, and he will not survive it.
Okay, so fascinating prediction. Before we get into our predictions and the reasons why we have those predictions, let's just briefly explain why we believe that impeachment is the right way to go about it. Because there are still some Democrats, including Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who think that this is not a good idea, that impeachment will lead to a divisive climate, as if we're all getting along and holding hands today.
Okay, I have to say 2 things about that. Look, on a previous show, I said I agree with Representative Gabbard about 90% of the time. This is apparently in the 10%. So first of all, on which planet is this country united? Like what kind of an absurd talking point is, then we'll be divided? No, Donald Trump has completely divided us already. Have you not been living in America? And second of all, so under that hypothesis, if Donald Trump shot someone on Fifth Avenue, should we not impeach him because it would be divisive?
Yeah, look, I don't believe in leadership that's grounded in fear, right? And so there's a lot of fear from some members of the House that I completely disagree with. So fear number 1, we will pursue impeachment and then he will be acquitted by the Senate and then it's a win for Trump. If you base all of your decisions on what the political ramifications could be, then you're gonna make bad decisions. We have a system of government where we're supposed to have checks and balances. And to be quite honest with you, this impeachment inquiry is coming late, in my opinion.
Very late.
I mean, there have been multiple violations of the emoluments clause. There's the hush money payments. There's the obstruction of justice. There's Trump using his own charitable foundation to enrich himself and pay off his settlements. I mean, Congress has been asleep at the wheel. So I'm glad that finally Congress, Democrats specifically, are messaging to Donald Trump, no, you are not above the law. So this is about principle over politics.
So two things about that. Number one, if you say to Donald Trump or any president, hey, by the way, if you break the law or you violate the Constitution, I'm going to do a political calculation on whether it benefits me or not to hold you accountable. Well, you basically just said, I'm a sleazy politician and I don't really care about law or principles. I only care about me and my power and my ego. And that is a devastating thing to admit. The only problem is that the media never holds corporate Democrats accountable. So otherwise they'd be like, wait, if a prosecutor made a political calculation as to whether he was gonna press charges against a criminal or not, everybody would be outraged, right? But in this case, they're like, oh, well, Nancy Pelosi making political calculations as if it was smart. Number two, when's the last time Democratic leadership made a political calculation that was correct? Certainly not in the last decade, right? So when not only Nancy Pelosi, but the conservative Democrats are the ones that don't want to do this. Well, they're terrible at political calculations. That's why the Democrats have lost 1,000 seats to the Republicans in the last 12 years. So why would anybody trust what they say about this? Now, most importantly, number 3 point about this, the Senate just voted on whether they're demanding the whistleblower complaint from the Trump administration. Now, according to Pelosi until today, and according to all those conservative Democrats, they said, well, we can't go into impeachment, doesn't make any sense because the Senate won't commit because the Senate Republicans will always stick with Donald Trump. Is that right? The vote today in the Senate was unanimous.
Oh, wow. So
the Senate Republicans have said, I don't care that you want to hide the whistleblower allegations, Donald Trump. You will hand it to the Intelligence Committee in the Senate right now.
So that's great, and I'm happy that they voted that way. But I also don't want to get ahead of ourselves and assume that they will look at that that they'll look at that whistleblower complaint and act appropriately based on what it says.
You think I'm a babe in the woods?
I do not think you are a babe.
Okay, so
or in
I
the woods.
know that's true. Neither one of those things. More likely to be in the woods. Anyway, no. Do I think the Senate Republicans will make political calculations based on what is good for their own power? Of course. But that dynamic will change as more and more information comes out.
Right.
And so, and even here, look, Trump's burned too many bridges. So when he goes to this, if the Senate Republicans were truly with him, they would have blocked that vote. But they didn't block it, they were unanimous with the Democrats. That's a really bad sign for Trump right out of the gate.
So let's talk a little bit about what influenced Pelosi's decision. Now, of course, it could be this giant story that's been developing since late last week involving the president of Ukraine. But there are also a growing number of Democrats in the House who are in favor of impeachment. And one of those representatives is Representative John Lewis, who Pelosi seems to have some respect for. And so he gave a speech, and during that speech he said, quote, "There comes a time when you have to be moved by the spirit of history to take action to protect and preserve the integrity of our nation. I truly believe, the time to begin impeachment proceedings against this president has come. To delay or to do otherwise would betray the foundation of our democracy."
No, it was over as soon as he said that. That's when I started tweeting like crazy, here comes impeachment. People are like, oh, whoa. No, there's no whoa. John Lewis is a legend, and no matter what I think of him or the nation thinks of him, which are both, I think, fairly high estimations of John Lewis, the Democratic caucus loves him and reveres him. So when he says it is a moment in history and that you will be betraying that moment if you do not act, it's over. So that's John Lewis saying, I can't take it anymore. And you have to know this political context. These days, John Lewis, bless his heart, I'm given his role in the civil rights movement, given what he just did, it'll be hard to ever criticize him on anything we disagree on. But he's not supporting the most progressive candidates. So don't take it as I agree with John Lewis 100%. I'm just telling you what the political context and reality of the Democratic caucus is. And for him, who is a close ally of Nancy Pelosi, to snap and go, that's it, I'm giving the speech. I don't care what you think. I'm going and I'm going to defy Pelosi and give that speech. It's over. And she couldn't resist that. She couldn't withstand that. And later in the day, Pelosi comes out and goes, I meant impeachment. I meant impeachment. So great credit to John Lewis, who made a giant difference here.
Now, I'm sure we're gonna get a lot more reaction from Donald Trump on this issue. However, let's get some initial reactions on how Trump feels about an impeachment inquiry.
Congress is moving towards impeachment, including Nancy Pelosi, could be as a result of the Ukraine call. How do you feel about that?
I think it's ridiculous. It's a witch hunt. I'm leading in the polls. They have no idea how they stop me. The only way they can try is through impeachment. This has never happened to a president before. There's never been a thing like this before. It's nonsense. And when you see the call, when you see the readout of the call, which I assume you'll see at some point, you'll understand. That call was perfect. It couldn't have been nicer. And even the Ukrainian government put out a statement that that was a perfect call. There was no pressure put on them whatsoever.
I was watching Melania that entire time.
Totally.
Because she's probably thinking, please impeach him. Please, I just want to divorce him. I just want this to be over. I don't want to be in the spotlight anymore.
No, every once in a while when he says something questionable, she looks at him like, really? Anyway, all right, back to important stuff. So, of course, almost everything he said there was not true. As always, it was a perfect call. What does that even mean? Now we know through the Wall Street Journal, no liberal rag, that he apparently asked the Ukrainian president 8 times to investigate Joe Biden and his son. And then he went on to say, oh, everybody admits that the Ukrainians are okay with it. That's not true. Senator Chris Murphy said he talked to the leader of Ukraine who told him, no, I was very concerned that the president was withholding our funds because he wanted me to investigate Biden and I wouldn't do it. And I thought, oh no, we're not gonna get the money. So nobody agrees to that at all, what Trump said. And of course, he's not leading in the polls at all. He's trailing badly in the polls to both Biden and Sanders. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.